meeting is hereby called to order. Since there's no other member present yet, the chair cannot still declare a quorum, and therefore mag-meeting muna tayo in the meantime. But I was told that Senator Recto, the author of the other bill, will also be attending along with Senator Miggs and Senator Risa. So while waiting for them, let's start, because we're supposed to start at 9 and it's 9 o'clock. So it is my habit to always start promptly. No. So first, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our guests. Chairperson Andre Domingo. Good morning, ma'am. And then the Department of Social Welfare and Development, USEC LACO, represented by Attorney Eunice Ruth Mina. Nandito ba? Wala pa. That's right. Yeah, okay. Good morning, ma'am. DepEd, represented by ASEC Malaluan. Morning, sir. Chairman Abraham Mitra, Gab. Morning, sir. And Attorney Ermar Benitez. Hi. The chair can now declare a quorum with the presence of our minority leader, Senator Frank Drilon. Casinos represented here by Mr. Donato Almeida, the president of Soler Resort and Casino, director. Then City of Dreams, no representative. Okada Resort and Casino, Attorney Jomer Perez and Miss Neri Aquino. Andiyan ba? Yeah. Is this Widows? May Widows ba? Widows Hotel and Casino. Asa Clark, represented here by Miss Agnes Liwanag. Are you here? And Attorney John Dexter Ponzalan. Please, ano ba available? Sit anywhere. And then GCG. Attorney Ganalan. Ganalan. Jan na lang. Attorney Jan. Okay. There are two bills under consideration. Senate Bill 847, authored by Senator Ralph Recto, the Senate President pro tempore, and Senate Bill 1471, authored by this representation. Entitled ng Senate Bill 847, an act creating the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Commission, authorizing the appropriation of funds therefore and for other purposes. Senate Bill 1471, on the other hand, is entitled An Act Amending Presidential Decree number 1869 as amended by Republic Act number 9487, otherwise known as the PAGCOR Charter. Now, before we start, I'd like to ask the chair kung ano yung status ng sa resort board. Please give us an update, because I understand you suspended the operation and after a while eventually you lifted the suspension. My first question is, this is the power to suspend is a quasi-judicial function, or you can suspend operation if you are a regulatory body in the exercise of a quasi-judicial power. So my question is, does PAGCOR have quasi-judicial power, ma'am?
Sir, may I request our lawyer to answer that? Thank you po.
Good morning, Your Honor. Based on our charter, we are empowered to regulate the operations of our licensees, and based on that, we suspended the operation of RW, our Resort World Casino.
But that's in the form of a penalty, which cannot be exercised in the absence of a quasi-judicial power, hindi ba? I'm just clarifying, not questioning, I'm just clarifying, just to kick off or kickstart the discussion.
I think, sir, it is also included in the provisional license of the casino.
So sa license na lang, sa contract nyo na lang
Opo, sir.
sinundan yung
Opo.
pagka-suspend at saka yung pag-lift.
Opo, sir.
Did you impose some fines? Hindi na.
Hindi po,
Wala.
sir. Wala po.
Anong update na doon? So they have resumed operations?
They have resumed operations, sir, but they were required po to follow certain protocols and under oath were that they have to undertake the presence of all different a checklist of all security measures, security equipment, and security protocols, which they have submitted under oath by their corporate counsel, Attorney Gina Alvarez.
Okay. As has been my policy as chair, I always yield the floor to the members present. So with that, I'll turn over the floor to Senator Gordo. Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You know, Senator Lacson is, and I attend some committee hearings here where we do not have an opportunity to talk, but at least with Senator Lacson as my chair here. Anyway, first let me congratulate Senator Lacson and the committee for hearing this very important measures this morning. It has always been my view that there is a basic problem when a regulator is also an operator of the activity which it regulates. And I have a problem, a policy problem, focusing on PAGCOR when PAGCOR regulates the gaming industry in this country and at the same time operates casinos. In other words, it is a situation where because of circumstances, PAGCOR regulates itself when it operates a casino. We need more, this is not, I don't think anyone can debate on this. This is something that we must correct. That is why when I wrote the GCG law, now headed by Mr. Attorney Ganalan, specifically, I included in Section 5L of the law the authority of the President to separate and privatize operations of government-owned and controlled corporations upon a determination that there is a conflict between the regulatory and commercial function of that corporation. And that is the case of PAGCOR. So just for the record, the GCG has the authority to recommend to the President, if in fact it finds that there is a conflict of function, that there should be a separation or a decoupling of the commercial operations and the regulatory functions of PAGCOR. But that does not, of course, prevent the Congress, as now it has not prevented my colleagues Senator Lacson and Senator Recto from filing the appropriate bills, which will now enable Congress as a policy-making body to whom the power really resides to direct the dealing of the gaming and the regulatory function of PAGCOR. It is perfectly within the prerogative of Congress, I would repeat, as a policy-making body to enforce as a policy that the two functions of PAGCOR should be separated, and as a further step, that the gaming operation should be privatized because the government has no business operating casinos. In fact, in our studies, Mr. Chairman, in our studies, except for Canada, all jurisdictions would have gaming operations, would have the regulatory function of gaming operations basically in government and the operation of the casinos in the hands of the private sector. therefore, with that, the government agency is better positioned to regulate the gaming industry. In fact, a very classic example is that of Singapore, Mr. Chairman. In Singapore, from our studies, they started their gaming operations, Casino Regulatory Authority of Singapore was created in 2006. But after 6 years, they were able to develop the regulatory policies detailing the requirement for casino operators. In other words, after 6 years, they were able to come up with a set of regulations, which resulted in the very fast progress of the gaming industry in Singapore. In our case, Mr. Chairman, PAGCOR was created in 1977. 1977. It was only in 2010 that the Casino Regulatory Manual was crafted. Only in 2010. That's about 2016, 2016, that's about almost 50 years, from 1977 to 2016. Almost 23 plus 16, 39 years before the Casino Regulatory Manual was crafted. Whereas in Singapore, it only took them 6 years. And this is very important because this enabled Singapore to leapfrog in the gaming industry, resulting in a well-regulated gaming industry and resulting in the fast pace improvement of integrated resorts. Dito po sa atin, as I said, it took us 39 years. That is why we were not able to avail of this very luxurious, the government was not able to avail of this very, of this industry, of the benefits of the industry. So it is with this thought in mind, Mr. Chairman, that we really feel that it is about time that we move on this, and I once more place of record my appreciation for the policy direction that I can read from the two bills and heard now by the chairman. Thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Drilon. That's one of the major issues. Actually, there are two major issues, yung being a regulatory body at the same time, a competitor, being an operator, I think something is anomalous in that kind of an arrangement. But before we go to the other issue, which is Congress, or at least the House of Representatives, wanting to reclaim the delegated power to grant franchise, yung PAGCOR. We'll talk about that later on. But in the meantime, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the observation made by Senator Drilon. So let's start off with first PAGCOR and then probably the casino operators and the other resource persons present, including GCG. So, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to point out that the same provision is present in the APECO and CESA laws. So this, if it's going to be corrected in PAGCOR, these also have to be corrected. Second, I have no objection on being just purely regulatory, as against also having to operate. However, because of the lapse of time, there's so many complications that are obtaining at present. Right now, because we now have a template for IRs, for example, we require the IRs here in NCR to put up a capital of at least $1 billion US, and there's now a number of rooms equivalent to the number of slot machines and ETG machines and tables. If we privatize just at that, then there would be a lot of small boutique boutique casinos, parlors that would not have to go through this. They will have a license, and they may not be required to get a loan anymore, a letter of no objection, which is very difficult to obtain from the local government. The other thing po is privatizing it might be, pricing it and the manner of selling it might be a little difficult because we do not own any of our venues. They're all rented, they're all leased. And we have properties, for example, the slot machines and all of that. Some are leased, some are obsolete because of the procurement law. We've not been able to update or upgrade our equipment. And also po, we have to resolve also the issue that they bring in a gross revenue or gaming revenue of 2 billion pesos a month. Opo, all the 44, and that would be 24 billion. So it could be a question of diminishing the revenues that are contributed to government. If all of these four are resolved and then we will not have any legal problems, I don't see any problem in the privatization aspect. Pagkatapos po, syempre, because negosyo to, meron po talagang malakas. Katulad po ng Angeles, katulad po ng Cebu, malakas po talaga. Kung paano ibibenta sila na yung hindi yung mahihina ang hindi mabenta, earning but marginally, earning but big. How will you price them and how will you sell them in what manner so that you're not accused of favoring yung mga, ganun po kasi, marami po kasing dito sa atin yung mga chismis. Yun po. So, all of this po, we're actually studying this and we're looking into how it can be done cleanly, legally, without having to go into any problems with the Ombudsman, for example, and how it could be implemented. Right now po, it's a pronounced policy of the Department of Finance, and we've already submitted documents regarding privatization to the Department of Finance. And we've always been cooperative. We've always submitted everything that they needed. Although I am told that privatization of government corporations is now under GCG, and that there are criteria to be followed by GCG in privatizing government corporations. So, kami po, we're willing to cooperate for as long as, again, all of us are working for the best interest of the government. As a manager po ng PAGCOR, it would be really a dream to just regulate. Mas madali po talaga, mas konti ang tao, at talaga pang with the IT technology now on how to regulate and how to detect transactions, even with the AMLA covering us, mas madali po yung trabaho eh. Sa ngayon po, ang income share po, 60% comes from the IRs, from yung licenses po namin. 40% po comes from PAGCOR operated, PAGCOR owned. 60-40 po ang aming income.
May we hear the opinion of GCG?
Good morning, sir. Good morning to the Honorable Vice Chair. Just to clarify first, I am not the head of the GCG. I am merely the General Counsel of the GCG.
You are with the OST?
GCG. The General Counsel of the GCG. Yes, Honorable Vice
So,
Chair.
you're neither from the finance, budget, or kasi namang membership ng GCG, di ba? You are the General Counsel of the GCG proper.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Sige.
Attorney Ortile?
Ortile.
Yes,
Sige.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Please, go ahead.
Our members includes also the agency is headed by Attorney Samuel Benpin, We have as members also the Secretary of the Department of Finance and the Secretary of Budget and Management. We already conducted a study regarding the decoupling of PAGCOR. No? In fact, this study is awaiting the approval of our GCG and bank. And if it's the pleasure of the Honorable Chair, we wish to discuss the details of our comments on the bills.
Do you have a copy of that? Can you share with us a copy of that paper?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
So that we will...
May you allow us to provide the copy within the bill?
Just give us an overview na lang
Yes, yes.
for our appreciation.
Attorney Neil Ortile, our Division Chief of the Legislative Division, will discuss our comments.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned by Attorney Canalon, we support the objective of the two Senate bills to separate the regulatory and commercial functions of PAGCOR. And we identified that PAGCOR is one of those GOCCs that are performing both regulatory and commercial functions. And we agree with the author of the bill to separate the two for the following reasons. Number one, on the uncompetitive nature of the PAGCOR's dual function. We see that PAGCOR performs both commercial and regulatory functions, and PAGCOR has the authority to operate its own casinos, and at the same time, PAGCOR has the power to approve, grant, revoke, suspend, and renew gaming licenses, and to formulate and enforce regulations and policies on licenses. This duality of functions is inherently conflicting and the PAGCOR is the regulator of its own gaming operations as well as its competitors. Second reason is the underdeveloped regulatory function of PAGCOR. The conflicting interests arising from its dual functions have restricted PAGCOR's effectiveness as a regulatory body that can promote integrity of the industry, level the playing field among industry players, and establish protective mechanisms against illegal activities. Aside from the considerable time and attention that commercial operations naturally occupy at the level of PAGCOR governance and management, there's also an inherent incentive for them not to issue regulations which are a natural burden on the business side of operations affecting profitability. The next reason is the heightened vulnerability of emerging casinos. According to the Financial Action Task Force, the gaming industry is characterized by cash-intensive activity. It involves a great amount of money and people going in and out of the country. This makes the sector vulnerable to criminal exploitation such as related money laundering and terrorist financing, and this requires a more stringent regulatory environment, and PAGCOR has to develop its expertise and its enforcement capability as a regulator. And lastly, on effective regulation and private sector participation to sustain growth. PAGCOR has been partnered with private sector to develop its gaming industry. Of the 45 PAGCOR-operated casinos, 20% are 100% owned and funded by PAGCOR, while the remaining 23 are on income sharing scheme with PAGCOR, where the proponent's investment is the casino space. With huge investment stake, a stable and strong regulatory framework is in the interest of the government and the industry. So the global model, and as mentioned by Senator Villan, one of the Singapore model, is one where the commercial and regulatory functions are performed by different entities or the government itself, and the government itself does not engage in casino operations and gaming authorities, and the gaming authorities only perform regulatory functions. Those are the summary of the study, the study that we conducted, and we will submit the whole study to this committee within the week.
Yeah, Senator Dillon.
So basically, GCG would have no basic problem with the policy that will be adopted by these two bills of separating the regulatory and operating function of PAGCOR. Whether or not we privatize the gaming operation is another issue. But certainly, the first issue is the separation of the two aspects of the operation. Now, We are conscious of the problems raised by Chairperson Domingo. But we believe, yes, there will be problems, but we do not intend to privatize PAGCOR tomorrow. Certainly, we realize that it will take a few steps. But what we intend to do is precisely to put up the policy framework with this bill, that we separate the two, and if to me, after we separate the two, we privatize the operation, because government has absolutely no business being in the gaming industry. The income of PAGCOR, PAGCOR therefore, as a regulating body, should have no income except that provided under the General Operations Act, because you're not supposed to be operating anything. You're supposed to be a regulator. And the income that you generate will be from the licensing of the casino, of the private sector. And this can be substantial.
And the share. And the share.
And yeah, it can be very substantial. You can have the fees, etc., and that is a detail which the implementers can do. But what the law can put is the policy framework, the timetable, when this should be completed, and who should do it. Yes, right now, as I said, the law which I crafted delegated it there, or allowed the GCG to do it upon approval of the President. But since it has been there, and the past administration also did not use this power because of policy differences, now the Congress is taking back, is exercising that power to set the policy. And therefore the policy, if this bill is approved by Congress, is to decouple the operations of the commercial and the regulatory operation, maybe to privatize also, but that is, we do not have to do it, we do not have to provide the details in the bill. We realize that there are a lot of things to be done. But the matter of how to do it, we just provide the framework. For example, the matter of defining, of looking at all those laws which grab a portion of PAGCOR income, which allocated. Kung ano-anong, maybe we should look at that, because, and then just the general fund should be the recipient of that. I also do not, including the President's Social Fund, because this is a delegated power to appropriate, Mr. Chairman. We have the power to appropriate, but this power to appropriate was delegated by PD, not by Congress, by PD, to the Office of the President in terms of the President's Social Fund. So all of these things we must review, set the policy, so that we can put it in proper perspective once and for all. And I would repeat, we cannot handle all the details in the law, Mr. Chairman, but we just set the policy and let those who will actually implement it be guided by this policy that we will be setting in the law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Even the grant of legislative franchise, Mr. Chairman, if we read the Constitution on on the grant of legislative franchise, mukhang limited lang sa utility. And it's by virtue of another PD na nagkaroon ng franchise yung PAGCOR. Of course, matagal pa naman to, 2033 pa yung mag-expire. But it's better that we resolve this issue in the discussion of these bills, para mukhang sa tingin ko hindi naman kailangan ng legislative franchise yung PAGCOR mismo, and much less legislative franchises granted to operators.
That's correct, sir.
But of course, we were talking during the budget, the DBCC deliberation, and we came up with the conclusion as to why.
No, but I agree with the views of the chair. we do not need especially after the decoupling, PAGCOR becomes a regulatory agency. So it does not need a franchise.
Even the operators.
The operators,
Much
much
less,
less.
yeah.
The authority to operate can emanate from PAGCOR as the regulator, not from Congress, because you don't grant a franchise to a gaming operation under the Constitution. So I think that's an issue that can be resolved again in our in the bill that we pass.
Just for the record, distinguished Minority Leader, Article 12, Section 11 of the 1987 Constitution. Naliwanag po rito, no franchise, certificate of any or any other form of authorization for the operation of a public utility. And I don't see how PAGCOR would qualify as a public utility. So malinaw po tayo doon. Ang problema lang dito, medyo malakas talaga yung clamor sa from the House of Representatives na Congress ang mag-issue ng franchise, which we have already agreed, we will fight tooth and nail, kung mag-stalemate kami sa BICAM nito, malaking problema rin yan, but we will insist on the clear provision of the Constitution. Having said that, we'd like to hear from the operators, your views on this issue. First, umpisa na muna natin yung sa papaganon. You're representing, Ms. Luanag, you're representing...
I'm representing Widows Hotel and Casino.
Widows, sige. Yeah, your views.
Yes, actually, sir, Mr. Senator, we actually support the... Widows po, sa Clark. Yes, sir. So, actually, sir, we support the separation of the... yeah. So we support the separation because of course it will promote the integrity of in terms of competition sa industry. So kung yun lang naman po yung we're very supportive of that. Wala naman pong major issue on that one.
You also support the policy that government should not engage in the gaming, in the operation of casinos?
Yes, sir.
Because in some jurisdiction, well, only in Canada really, the operation and the regulation are separate, but both are government entities. Wherein one portion, one agency operates the casino, the other regulates the operator. Here, the intention of the bill is really to privatize the operation so that the government, and I agree, should not engage in the gaming industry. And that's the thrust also of the bill of Senator Lacson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Malicious.
Actually, sir, it's mas madali po in terms of the operation sa operator that yung regulator is just a regulator kasi medyo sometimes of course we cannot remove the bias when it comes to especially pagka yung market na po yung pinag-uusapan. So there's always
the regulator gets regulated.
yes. So
Ganun ba?
parang ganun, sir. Yes.
Sige.
City of Dreams.
Morning, Mr. Senator. The IRs have discussed this, and with your permission, Mr. Senator, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Attorney Gina of Resorts World, who is our speaker for this, spokesperson for this one.
So, you're organized.
In a way.
In a way. Sige, Attorney Gina.
So, maayos po sana yung
Sige.
pag-usap.
So, you have a common position.
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Senator.
sige, Attorney Gina.
Good morning, Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair. First of all, we would like to say that despite the fact that PAGCOR holds both the regulatory and operational functions, they've done a fine job for the past years of actually having two different teams taking care of regulation and operations. And so there has been no conflict whatsoever for the past years. Also, we wanted to state Senator Drilon, you've noted that it took 39 years for the CRM to be crafted. Well, the privatization, insofar as the IRs are concerned, only happened in 2009. And I recall that as early as 2013, the first version of the CRM was actually issued by PAGCOR. So that's like 4 years into private operation of casinos. PAGCOR has issued the regulatory manual. But having said that, we really would defer eventually to the Senate and of course to PAGCOR how they would want to proceed if you will really divorce the regulation and the operation. However, on the two bills that have been proposed, the industry notes a few matters that we think deserve attention. First off, Your Honors, when we were invited to put up the integrated resorts, we were tasked to invest at least 1.1 billion US dollars. And in exchange, we were given a provisional license that's coterminous with the PAGCOR charter. We are, of course, concerned that there are provisions in the pending bills that would limit the term to a fixed term or less than what was agreed upon at the inception of the agreement. The other thing, Your Honor, is, of course, on the fees. The Senate bill that was proposed by Senator Recto contemplates license fees of 5% of gross revenue plus 25%. Which means 25 plus 5 is 30. Our current arrangement is a 15-25 license fee structure, which includes already the 5% franchise fee. So this will change the economic terms of our agreement with PAGCOR should the model of Senator Recto be followed. The other thing, Your Honor, is on the power to suspend and revoke licenses. The version that was sponsored by Senator Lacson, granting of mere written notice to the licensee, whether by actual service or by tender, makes the revocation or the suspension effective. In our current provisional licenses, there's a due process clause that would allow for notice and hearing, and opportunity for us to rectify within a period of 90 days. I think of all the provisions that are being forwarded, these are the most crucial for us because it will impact on our provisional licenses, especially so that we were asked to infuse 1.1 billion at the start. And changing the commercial terms by virtue of these bills will of course impact on the economics of the transaction that was entered into. That's all, Your Honor.
Soler? Yun na rin?
Yes.
Or you have your own?
Just a little addition, Your Honors, and by the way, good morning, sir. We are also public companies. Obviously, we are traded in the public stock market, and we have foreign investors. And we do appreciate the policy desire of Your Honors to obviously separate the regulatory side to the operational side. And it's very difficult for us as public companies to justify particularly our foreign investors, that our regulator is also an operator. So it also falls into line that
Your regulator is your competitor.
That's correct. That's correct. So obviously we are obviously in this reality now, and we'd like to think it's just a matter of time that this thing will be resolved. So again, we support this particular desire of the Senate, and
we also defer to PAGCOR to the right timing and formula for this thing to be executed properly. Thank you.
In my bill, which by the way, marami ito called from the legislative proposal of PAGCOR itself, ano? Unlike yung kay Senator Recto. That's why merong 3-year transition period, no, before this takes effect completely. Diba? And since the proposal came from you, I would assume na yun yung period na kailangan ninyo to really transition from being a regulator operator to a mere regulator, di ba? Kasi meron din kino-consider ditong displacement ng mga employees ng PAGCOR. How many employees do you have, by the way?
We have about 11,000 right now, sir. To be displaced would be about 9,500. We say displaced because although they're all quite skilled, we have a very old population. So,
Kaya
opo, yung bagong magte-take over, syempre po kung 40%, 50% and nasa age na ng 45 to 60, konti na lang ang productive years, malaki ng retirement, they would hesitate to take them on.
So, there are possible schemes naman di ba? One suggested, one proposal would be, bigyan natin ng, we talk to the operators, and let's give them the first option to be hired by the operators, if that is okay with the operators, para lang hindi ma-displace. Another option would be early retirement. Of course, it entails additional expense, di ba, pagka early retirement, kasi kukuha ng mga benefits and all, yung pension nila. Now, in your position paper, remember, sinabi ninyo na to make up for the deficit, the projected deficit out of privatization, kailangan merong ibang gagawin like liberalization, not only privatization but liberalization. What do you mean by that? May we acknowledge the presence of Yusek Singson of the Department of Finance. Good morning. Welcome, ma'am.
I think it means literally having more to make up, which is actually against naman po our policy of proliferation. The thing of how to make up for the gap in the income would be actually to encourage the new operators to expand operations. Because right now, malilit lang talaga po boutique. Whereas, for example, the IRs would be employing thousands of people in our casinos. We'd have just 1,000 or 2,000. They would have 10,000 and all of that. Mas marami pong competition. Right now, we are controlling proliferation as experienced by the 4 IRs here in Entertainment City. Isa po yun sa concern because nga we wanted to maintain our level of revenues from sharing. But meron po kasing ibang schemes that we might want to present to you. As you said po, we have a period of transition that we could look into, which is like we do not sell the license, we sell the management. And it's completely out of our management, but we impose the same sharing. Marami pong mga ideas na lumalabas sa aming brainstorming.
Senator Drilon.
Mr. Chair, just to react to some of the statements of Attorney Alvarez of Resorts World, first she expressed the concern that the license is co-terminus with PAGCOR. We assure from where I sit, Mr. Chair, I don't think that this will happen because of the constitutional provision that no law shall be passed which will impair the obligations in contracts. There is an existing contract between PAGCOR and you, and we will not be foolish to cause the termination of contract by removing the power to operate casinos. In the first place, that pertains to the power to regulate the casino, and that power will continue with the PAGCOR. So there should be that should not pose any problem. I assure you that we will not do that. In the first place, it's, in my view, contrary to the Constitution. In the second place, the source of the license is PAGCOR as a regulator, and PAGCOR will continue as a regulator. On the fee structure, that's a matter that, again, if there's if that's part of the contract, even if it is not, the government is not so happy, we'll have to live with that. Again, that's an obligation of the government. One of the comments that I have, with all due respect to Senator Lacson, is that I think there is an effort to widen the scope of the operation of PAGCOR before you start to privatize PAGCOR. Floating casinos is there, and maybe we can take a good look at that, Mr. Chairman, whether or not that is consistent with the policy of privatizing PAGCOR. Because I was reading it, and indeed there are a number of provisions which would in effect strengthen the operations aspect of PAGCOR. When in fact the last provisions would indicate that we will have 4 years to privatize it, which also I think is a little long, but we can discuss that when we have the final debate on this bill. But maybe, Mr. Chair, if I may preempt, maybe we can ask Yusek Karen Singson for the views of the DOF on this point, if you don't mind, Mr.
Good morning. Your Honors, we agree with the initiative to separate the operation function of PAGCOR with its regulatory function. To address the issue that was raised, we agree that, when we look at the best path for privatization, we need to figure out what are the operating functions that could be transmitted to the private sector, because the government shouldn't really be in the business of operating casinos. And so, in most privatization plans that we undertake, we really now look very closely at any moves that might extend the operations of the business. So, for example, when we privatize land, we make sure that there are no longer any long-term leases signed, because it would compromise our ability to generate the best cash value from privatization. So likewise, in an operation like this, where PAGCOR is still operating some casinos on its own, once we undertake privatization, we will put basically a sunset provision in your ability to extend any of these, because the idea is for these to be awarded to the private sector, and it's more attractive when you can commit to give them kind of a long-term and a clean business structure, and whether that would be in a form of lease, revenue sharing, whether it's going to be bid out in a way where the government can generate an upfront premium from as a bid parameter. Because if we have to generate revenues right away, sometimes it might be better for us to just require an upfront premium and maybe lower the fees going forward. That way the cash flows could be given to the treasury much more immediately. But that's really a economic policy decision on whether how much revenues the government needs to basically provide. I think some of our comments here are more on governance, and I guess GCG, I'm not sure if they were able to comment already, but we have some comments on just the governance of the future PAGCOR as a regulator. So I think there was in one of the Senate bill versions, we have still I think the compensation of the commission are still tied to the percentage of the revenue share. So I think that, provisions like that might have to be reviewed, maybe fix it so that it's not...
What will remain, the regulatory function will remain and only will regulate now,
yes,
except for bidding out probably, or whatever system they would have, or bidding out the licenses, no particular income.
Yes, so I think it was more that there's still a revenue share, right? So it will be the 5%, 20% or whatever that the licensing fee, and that if it's still being collected by the regulator and the compensation of the regulators are tied to that fee sharing, it might introduce some conflict. So maybe we just the GCG will probably for the disposition entity. I think there were suggestions to have some of the privatizations done by the Privatization Management Office. There are several ways to have this privatized. That's one option, and we think though that as long as the structure is straightforward and that it's designed such that we're really trying to get the best revenue share for government, and the bidding is transparent. That the selection of the bid and the disposition entity really is irrelevant as long as the terms are pretty much in line with market standards.
Thank you, Yusek Singson. Si Chairman Kaina, you brought up a very important point, how do we treat now APECO and CESA? And I need the help of some legal minds, of course, nandito Senator Dillon. Would a repealing clause suffice to amend the charter or charters of APECO and CESA? Would a repealing clause in this bill, if it becomes a law, effectively, of course, amend their charters or invalidate the charters granted them? Yun ang tanong ko.
Attorney Sanyosa would like to answer that.
Just offhand, I think they're given specific law or specific charters with respect to their operation. So I don't think a law amending us would affect their, just a simple general repealing clause will suffice. I think there must be a specific law also amending a specific law as well.
Chair. Yes, in response to your question, Mr. Chair.
So there'll be 3 regulators now?
No, yes.
Effectively, no?
No. That's why I was going to express a view. We can specifically amend that specific portion in the APECO and PESA. For example, saying that the gaming operations will now be supervised by PAGCOR. But we cannot also, again, under the same principle of that we cannot pass a law impairing the obligations in contracts. The contracts entered into by APECO and Cagayan PESA, Cagayan CESA, must be respected if there are outstanding contracts. But certainly there is nothing that will prevent us from transferring the jurisdiction of regulating the gaming operations under the franchise granted by APECO and CESA, transferring it to the government body which will regulate the casino industry, because that's a casino industry also, and it's akin to, there are no 2 subjects in the same bill. It's still just the regulation of the casino. But because really we should, I'm glad that the chair, that also the chair Domingo brought it up, because there is a proliferation of online gaming licensed
and
by...
it's borderless, by the way.
Yes, it's borderless. It's not only when this was granted to CESA, we thought we were under the impression that the casinos will be in the boundaries of the Cagayan export zone. Now the boundaries has extended to the Rizal RCBC building in Ayala. So we must do something about this. And again,
In fact, I used to hear Senator Enrile at the time when he was still with us during the previous Congress. Sabi niya, yung PAGCOR territorial lang kayo, kami hindi. So wala kayong pakialam sa amin. So that was a bold statement. And now that we are moving towards making PAGCOR a purely regulatory body, how do we now treat CESA and APECO? Ang sabi nyo nga, dahil hindi naman pwedeng one title, two subjects under this bill. The same subject.
It's the same subject, regulation of the casino, and therefore we can amend that portion of the CESA charter pertaining only to the casinos. The standard clause, Mr. Chair, that we craft is the provision of any law to the contrary notwithstanding, the operation of the casino shall be licensed exclusively by PAGCOR, something like that. You can defend it because you do not have a rider. It is a provision which is pertinent and relevant and of the same subject matter as regulating the casino industry. You can defend that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm glad that you're here because I assume that you will be very active in the interpellations.
I will. If I will interpolate, it is only to place of record statements that will support the bill, Mr. Chair, not for anything.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rilan. Anyway, going back to yung sa deficit, di ba meron pa kayo ibang activities aside from casinos? Meron kayong e-bingo, e-games, ano yung Tawin?
E-game po yan, sir.
Tapos VIP clubs, yun, poker clubs.
Opo.
Ito, sources pa rin ng revenues ito ng PAGCOR. So,
Opo, sir.
My question is, would it be not feasible to bid out yung mga existing na mga, sabi niyo, mga boutiques, mga parlors, para meron kayong revenues upfront, no? And then, as suggested by Yusek Karen kanina.
Yun pong e-games at e-bingo at poker, puro po yun licenses, sir. Hindi po namin pag-aari.
I mean, yung mga ino-operate ninyo na mga parlors, ito yung mga slot machines?
We don't, yun pong slot machines na-operate po namin, yung nasa casino po na owned and operated.
So how would you go about it? If and when you become a purely regulatory body?
Ayun po yung gusto ni privatize. Yun pong casino mismo, yung buo.
But you raised an issue na pagka mahirap, dahil mga luma na yung makina, baka wala ng takers.
Tsaka hindi po amin yung venue.
Hindi nyo yung venue kasi hotel, halimbawa. So ano yung i-bid out ninyo? Yun ang question ninyo.
Opo.
Yung license itself.
Yun pong license to operate, yun po lang actually ang ibibenta. At saka
yung assets, of course.
Yung assets
Whatever
na
assets.
remaining. Opo. And the goodwill, kasi po, because we've been there the longest, so we have built up clientele.
So hindi problema yon. Yung 3 years transition, okay yon. You can publish everything.
Opo. In fact, I'm telling our group now that after this meeting, we would like to get a copy of the minutes so we could convene and try to map out alternative actions so that we can then present to you what could be the best alternative, the second best, and the third best.
In the bill of Senator Recto, lahat ng share ng government buho sa DepEd. Andito yung representative ng DepEd. You know, I don't know about Senator Dillon, pero ako medyo may issue ako doon. No, dahil how many percent? Yung 75%, no? Sa DepEd pupunta. So, siyempre happy ka. So, sige, your opinion. Sige.
Your Honor, I think the invitation to the...
Especially now na meron ng pre-tuition act, tapos bibigyan pa kayo ng 75% from PAGCOR. Anyway, sige, your opinion.
Your Honor, I think the invitation to DepEd
to this hearing relates to the provision of the bill of Senator Recto that earmarks a proportion of the collection from the earnings, from the gross earnings, the aggregate gross earnings of the license holders. And as you mentioned, Your Honor, 75% of that is earmarked to K-12 and Department of Education. And I'm sure, well, the chairman was aware of the decision of the secretary at the beginning of her term to respectfully decline the support of PAGCOR for school buildings. And part of the reason for that was a combination of the felt sufficient support by Congress and the executive to our school building program, as well as the other support that they used to provide with our school-based feeding, which even in this, even in the appropriation in 2018, Mr. Chair, Honorable Chair, this has been even increased from 1.8 million learner beneficiaries to 2.5 million. Aside from that, there is an existing law, the Adopt a School, that provides a mechanism for the private sector to give donations directly to our schools for school buildings. In fact, Mr. Chair, I recall that the Secretary's comment then was that the big issue that we came to at the transition was the matter of DPWH and DepEd being able to keep up with the utilization of such funds, and that is the key area of reform that we are working with DPWH. So in respect to that, Your Honor, I think that the formula in the bill that the chair has introduced, which is to identify the generic socio-economic development fund as something that will provide the executive greater flexibility in determining the most compelling need at a certain point, Mr. Chair, rather than specify it by law in very specific. As we note, the thrusts of the executive can change over time. For example, within the framework of socio-economic development fund, that can even accommodate infrastructure, for example, or in at the beginning also health was identified by the executive as a key area for destination of the funds of PAGCOR. In the same manner, the education, Your Honor, is somehow assured by the Constitution the highest budgetary priority. So all of those considered. But let me state also that the Secretary has made a pronouncement that she is of the opinion that there is an incompatibility with the education from the education framework with respect to gambling. Yes, Mr. Chair. So I think that those that remains standing, Your Honor. However, the collections and earmarking is structured, we believe that a more generic socio-economic fund will provide greater flexibility for the executive to identify, as I mentioned, the most compelling need at the time, Mr. Chair.
Senator Rilan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, what we're discussing here is use of income, earmarking. In another fora, this is called pork barrel. Yes, because you are saying that it should be generic so that there will be flexibility. That's exactly the PDAF principle. That is what the Supreme Court struck down because as unconstitutional. Because the legislators are participating in the post-budget, post-enactment execution. There is flexibility, it is generic, that's exactly what you're talking about. Except that now, it is the executive branch who should have that flexibility, no longer Congress. So, masama pag ang Kongreso may flexibility, okay lang pag ang executive branch may flexibility. Let me finish. Okay? That's what you're saying. I have been in this game for quite a while, so I can analyze it for you. Now, Mr. Chairman, that flexibility precisely diminishes the power of Congress over the purse because we cannot legislate and we cannot appropriate. We just place there, okay, X% is for socio-economic programs. What those socio-economic programs, we do not know. Number two, when we already start allocating that, let's say for whatever, socio-economic activity, nakakalimutan natin pagdating ng General Appropriations Act, ay may pera palang nakatabi dyan para sa ganyan. So we just allocate blinded by the fact that may hundreds of millions of pesos are set aside from PAGCOR funds. That is why I am in favor of reviewing the allocation on the different agencies, because you and I are active in the budget deliberation. Do you remember if X agency has so much from PAGCOR or not? Hindi naman sinasabi yun sa atin as a source of the fund of these agencies. So they do not say that we get so much from PAGCOR. So we get blinded by this. And therefore, for transparency's sake, we should maintain the power of Congress over the purse. And as the Supreme Court said, we should not allow post-enactment intervention, whether it is Congress or the executive branch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
May
Rejoinder.
not really a rejoinder, but a clarification on my statement, Your Honor, because it has been equated with the position in favor of pork barrel. That is certainly not the intent of my comment, Mr. Chair. First, we were making a comment with the two formulation that in the two bills, the one by Senator Rector and the one by the chair himself as filed. And secondly, Your Honor, that does not preclude within the socio-economic formula by Senator Lacson, the Honorable Chair, an intervening appropriation to determine where exactly that fund can be made. And finally, Your Honor, I would like to also put on record that the current Secretary of the Department of Education, Secretary Briones, before joining and at the last time was at the forefront of making a strong opinion and in fact advocacy against the pork barrel, Mr. Chair.
Also sure, Mr. Chair, that I am sure without talking to Yusek Karen Singson, they would frown upon legislation which would already earmark proceeds from privatization, for example, for certain activities. And really, we should refrain from that because, unless extremely unless justified. Like, for example, we earmark for sin taxes the health sector. That was justified. We passed the sin tax law on the basis with your full support, Mr. Chairman, because we really pass it as a health measure. And therefore we really earmark it for health. But that's what it was. But in the others, as I said, as a general rule, we should put it in the general fund because that will also improve our balance sheet as a government, the general fund, rather than earmark fund. The balance sheet of the national government is helped by the non-earmarking of the sources of funds, so that in this particular case, I assume the license fees will be the principal source, or whatever combination or scheme there will be, but the earmarking should be justified as an exception to the general rule rather than the general rule itself. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You'd like to say something, Chair?
I think, sir, the answer to the question of allocating the money for school buildings or to education is very simply put in a letter that Secretary Briones wrote me very early last year. She said that she doesn't want gambling money to be put in education. And so, yes, sir, it's written. And so we stopped actually putting money in school buildings and even school feeding programs. She doesn't want it, sir.
So, Gab, Chairman Baham, how would you want Gab to position itself in all this discussion?
It's a very hard position, but
sabi ni Senator, you're being abolished by Senator Pacquiao.
The Senator Pacquiao would like to take out boxing from the GAB, but we have a position on that. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, GAB's mandate is regulatory and supervisory of boxing, basketball, mixed martial arts, horse racing, cockfighting. For example, in horse racing, we work with 3 racing clubs: Metro Manila Turf Club, Manila Jockey Club, and the Philippine Racing Club. And we merely just supervise and look over the financial side and the betting side. But in boxing, there's several times that we've worked with promoters, especially during the conventions, where GAB works with promoters on the actual fights, and we'd like to say that promoters look up to it, and parang ginagaya po kami na pagka nandyan ang GAB, kapag mayroong promoter, mas areglado, mas ayos, and ginagaya po ng ibang mga promotions. And then, well, we've also worked with PAGCOR in dun sa mixed martial arts naman po, yung boxing yung kanina. And mukhang nakikita po nung ibang mga promoters na maganda rin pala to work with PAGCOR and GAB, unlike kung sila lang ang nagpo-promote. But of course, our mandate is really not to promote but to regulate and supervise. And well, we are unlike PAGCOR that generate a lot of funds for the national government in support for the President's anti-drug campaign. So malayo po kami sa PAGCOR, especially po sa budget. Ako po parang bunsong anak ni Ma'am Andrea.
So clearly there's no conflict whatsoever between the regulatory function ng GAB at saka ng PAGCOR, kasi delineated naman eh. Yung lines are clearly drawn, di ba? So,
yes, Your Honor.
So, magpapaampon ka na lang kay Chairperson Domingo. Bunsong anak.
Matagal na po akong anak ni Ma'am Andre. But all GAB is all sports po eh. More on sports. And then, of course, nandyan po yung the advantage of GAB, even if maliit kami, meron pong anti-gambling unit. And as explained in the previous hearing, we've requested the PNP for personnel, which we were declined. And meron pong NBI na tumutulong po dun sa anti-gambling. We just work with them, illegal gambling. Thank you.
Alam mo, I can only sympathize with you, ano, sa GAB. Kasi you're neither here nor there. Especially ngayon, pinaghiwalay sa Senate yung naging dalawang committees na eh. Committee on Games and Amusement and Committee on Sports. So, nagkaroon na kayo ng identity crisis, no? You don't know where to go. And between PCSO and PAGCOR, hindi nyo rin alam kung saan din kayo susuling.
Actually po, sa House ganun din po eh. Meron din Committee on Sports at meron din Committee on Games and Amusement. But so far, we've never been invited to the Committee on Sports. We're always attending the House Committee on Games and Amusements.
Ang regulate nyo, mostly sports?
Medyo po, opo. Well, meron lang po horse racing and yung cockfighting, international cockfighting.
Okay, moving forward, yung si Senator Recto in his bill is proposing that casinos should only be put up in cities with tourists numbering not less than 100,000. And I think you are opposing this. So, kindly elucidate nga yung issue na ito.
Kasi on the other hand naman po, there are areas which if there are no facilities like this, tourists will not go to. So, for example, there are beautiful places like Siargao and all of that. If you don't have entertainment, since we're not promoting gaming by itself, we're promoting an integrated resort. There would be a hotel, there are restaurants, there are entertainment areas, and then we limit the casino to less than 20%. Like the one that's being put up now in Mactan, it's less than 3% po yung area. Hindi po pupunta doon yung turista kung walang masyadong entertainment.
So, parang cart and horse
yes,
situation.
Sir. Opo, sir.
Parang kayo yung gusto nyong, kayo yung prime mover.
Yes, sir.
Tourism.
And it's
instead of the other way around.
Opo, sir.
The point. Entrance fees. This is another issue. If you are at all amenable, how much would be a conscionable entrance fee?
I think, sir, 500 pesos, okay. Kung pong 3,000 pesos, kung consumable yung part of it. Like, it could be converted into coupons for betting. $100, 100 Singapore dollars, sir. 3,000 pesos.
It's okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, what was the income of PAGCOR in 2016?
55 billion point...
Sorry?
55 billion point 2, I think, sir.
55?
0.2 billion. 0.2. 0.02.
0.02. 55.02.
Yes, sir. 06, sir. 55.06.
So 55 billion...
0.06.
60 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And that is in 2015, correct me if I'm wrong, but my research indicate, is it 47 billion, 212 million? Is that correct?
Opo, sir.
All right, no. And the income increased substantially because of the integrated resorts, because of these integrated casinos. Is that correct?
Hindi po, sir. I think it's a combination of factors. In 2015, they reached 47 million because they sold some real estate. Billion because they sold some real estate. During this time in 2016, we increased because now we started, the Bloomberry one in their case, and we started collecting again the full 5% franchise tax, which we pay the government in full also. And then we improved collection on the IRs, and we also improved performance in our owned and operated casinos, because we were able to generate more bets, and also we were able to put down our OPEX from 32% to 23%, and our marketing rate to win rate from 17% to about 5%.
Can you submit to us these financial statements?
Opo, sir.
Please. And yes. So if we can have copies of the financial statements of PAGCOR, this is a government agency. Mr. Chair, also here I would like to manifest that given the fact that the GCG today is still relatively new, I don't think you have been involved in privatization. May I suggest, and I will, that the Privatization Management Office, is that how they deal? Is it how it's called? What's
That's an attached agency to the Department of
yes,
Finance.
what is the official name? I used to say
Yes, it used to be the Asset Privatization Trust.
Yes,
right
APT.
now, yes.
Yes.
So it's called the Privatization Management Office.
Privatization Management Office. The Privatization Management Office is technically equipped to handle the privatization simply because GCG is still new to this aspect of government work, and therefore, for purposes of the committee report, may I suggest that the matter of the privatization should be lodged with the Privatization Management Office under the Secretary, under the Department of Finance, if that's in order.
Yeah, GCG.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, the GCG has already been involved in several privatization efforts, no? Especially those GOCCs which are consistently losing.
But they're not of the magnitude of
Yes,
PAGCOR.
not in the
You
magnitude.
can assist, maybe together with my suggestion is the PMO as the lead agency, with the GCG as one of those part of the committee.
As an additional point, Mr. Chair, in response to the earlier statement of the Honorable Senator Drilon, that the power to recommend the decoupling of PAGCOR has not been exercised by the GCG, in the interest of transparency and without meaning to undermine the authority of the legislature, which we fully recognize, the GCG, at least under this administration, is moving towards recommending to the President the decoupling of PAGCOR. And I just would like to manifest this because we don't want the committee to be blindsided by the efforts of the GCG.
Don't worry, Mr. Ganalan. We know that GCG have tried to do it, not only now, but in the past, tried to decouple the function of PAGCOR. But unfortunately, that kind of a policy did not meet the approval of the executive branch. I do not know today. I know GCG's position, but this is a policy issue, and that is why I made it clear from the very start that Congress is the policy-making body of this government. We delegated this particular formulation of a policy in cases of conflict in the function to the GCG, but does not prevent Congress from looking into it again, and Congress itself doing the policy, making the policy decision, and that is why we are here today. So, as I just said in the committee report, Mr. Chair, may we request that the DOF Privatization Management Office be the one that will be the lead agency with the GCG assisting them, and of course the other agencies like PAGCOR. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drilon. License fees being collected by PAGCOR. What is the legal basis in your collection of license fees? Is that in the charter of PAGCOR or sa contract lang? Okay.
For the record.
Yes, sir. It's in the contracts po. Di ba?
So it doesn't have to be in the charter, spelled out in the charter. Sa contract, ano yung standard nito? Do you follow international standards
Yes, sir.
when you collect license fees?
Yes, it's like 25% on the mass markets, 10% on the high roller markets.
And there's no problem with the operators,
No problem on the operators.
only because the chairman is here.
I think, Your Honor, the part of the study that PAGCOR did on the franchise fees was based also on the regional competition. So we have to position ourselves in terms of being competitive with our regional competitors.
Do you have other issues, Madam Chair?
None, sir. We are happy to note that there would be enough time to work out all possible problems. And we're happy to note that we've been working closely with DOF on this, Secretary Dominguez. Although we've also been asked by this GCG a little bit earlier on some information, financials, but we didn't know that they already had a recommendation for decoupling. That sounds a little bit obscene, but to the president, but we didn't know about that one.
Is that the best euphemism that you can table?
At least it's really transparent.
Yes, sir.
I tell you, yung GCC ka naman, hindi nyo sinasabi that you're going to decouple them.
Well, USEC Simpson has been working with our legal and financial team on this, and we're due to submit to her very extensive financials. So we're happy to work with anybody for as long as sana we're informed.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, GCG.
Just to clarify, we don't have a recommendation at the moment. What we have is, we have efforts to recommend to the President the decoupling of PAGCOR. So we don't have the official recommendation yet.
Your Honor, if I would just like to make a comment on behalf of the licensees on the proposed entrance fees. One of the things that we've noted among the players is they don't mind losing a lot of money in the tables and the machines, but they mind paying parking or entrance fees. So we're just sharing this with you, Your Honor, because at the end of the day, the license fees that we pay to government is a percentage of the gross gaming revenue, and that's a lot. So that if the entrance fees would be something that would make the players not come, maybe we would want to take a second look on that, because at the end of the day, it's very small amount compared to the GGR that we generate.
Yeah, compared to the generated income sana, minuscule yung amount ng entrance fee. Baka maka-affect doon sa ano ninyo.
In fact, Your Honor, if I may add, because they also do not want paying parking fees. One of the things we do is either we give free parking or we give them vouchers if they've played for a certain amount in the casino. That's how there's a certain psyche that they don't want paying all of these things, but they don't mind losing in the tables.
In the mind of a gambler, hindi ka pa naglalaro, talo ka na. Okay. Natoy.
Just to add to that, Your Honor, in the matter of responsible gaming also, it being a deterrence for people who really can't afford to gamble, not being allowed to gamble by coming in and imposing this kind of entrance fees. It is our opinion, and there are certain studies by other groups that have been done around the world, that pag nagbayad ka ng entrance fees, the tendency is maglaro ka ng mas mahaba. Para ba't sinusulit mo? Just like when we go into lounges when there is a cover charge, sometimes lasing ka na pero gusto mo standby pa ron dahil may binayad kang cover charge. Those kind of things in the aspect of responsible gaming, para sa tingin namin hindi angkop eh. So really we have to devise some other responsible gaming measures na hindi na sila makapasok kung hindi talaga dapat nagsusugal. rather than mapapasukan natin, and then susugal sila ng napakahaba na hindi naman nila kaya. Parang ganun. So these are the things that we just wanted to present to you as a matter of concern, because I think if that is an aspect just to deter people from coming in, those who cannot really afford, I think there are certain studies that negates that. Although sa Singapore, I understand there is, of course, a big, but iba naman yung market sa Singapore. Tsaka, in that sense, I think Singapore is also very quiet dahil meron silang ganyang studies to also that would also run counter to what they are charging right now.
I think sa Singapore, kasi mahigpit sila sa money laundering, no? Okay. They impose entrance fees to identify all their clients. At the same time, when you pay your entrance fee, you're required to present your ID. And I would suggest that PAGCOR do the same, no? Yung mga operators. Because, makaka-apekto ba ito sa negosyo? Dahil, mababasa yung laro or what? Kasi sa anti-money laundering law, di ba, cash naman yung sa pinasa ng Congress, cash lang yung pag-uusapan, wala naman yung mga ibang instruments eh. But then, that's a way of identifying yung mga violators, no, sa threshold specifically. And yeah.
Po nang naglalaro na may player tracking system po kasi. So lahat po na naglalaro talaga nagbibigay ng ID bago makakuha ng chips. Natatrack po kaya pag meron pangalan na gustong itrack, actually natatrack ko lahat ng taya at wins and losses. Maski nasa di ba?
Slot players come and go, walang
What the PAGCOR chairman is saying, Your Honor, is incentivize ang player na talagang magpa-identify dun sa aming player rewards card dahil meron kaming mga marketing incentives for you to be able to, earn points and earn freebies and so forth and so on. And these are all in our database that is handled by our casino management system. Meron po kami lahat yan, na mga IR.
But it's not mandatory. Incentivize, meaning, bibigyan nyo ng parang rewards card. So, you're just motivating them to register. But if a player is aware that he could be trapped, he would not register. Lalo kung merong criminal record, baka hindi mag-register yun. Never mind the rewards, never mind the benefits, never mind the incentives of being a player. But if somebody, especially from another country, na ayaw naman magpa-identify, they will not register. So, ang suggestion, anyway, this is another issue dahil this concerns the strengthening of the anti-money laundering law, no? I think it would be better if we require registration of all casino players now that casinos are included as a covered institution. Yeah.
I'd like to bring up something just for information, Mr. President. First of all, Chairperson Domingo, can we include in your financial, in the copies of the financial report that you will submit to us, the sharing of the different agencies that by law would share in the income of PAGCOR? I know Philippine Sports Commission, etc., etc. How much in absolute pesos and centavos would this be? So that we'll have an idea. Marami na kasi ito eh.
Po sir, for how many years po sir?
Kahit for the last 3 years.
Last 5 years.
Yeah,
Opo. Pero po yung binibigay namin sa National Treasury, hindi na po namin alam kung saan napupunta yun,
No,
sir.
but by law,
Yes.
nakalagay yan eh, kung magkano, di ba? A certain percentage of the check.
Opo, sir, 50%.
So you remit it to the National Treasury,
Yes.
and they're the ones who would disburse this?
It's supposed to be for specific
Yes.
purposes, pero hindi ko po alam. We will ask National Treasury to
You will
account.
not submitted to the committee and we will furnish Senator Dillon
Yes,
a
sir.
copy. Sabi ko bigyan siya ng isa pang kopya.
Okay.
Kasi kasasubmit lang nito, Senator Dillon. So, but they have all the data here.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. There's something that I have heard in the coffee shops, which should concern PAGCOR. You know, in the recent past, we see all kinds of buildings being put up as office space. The news to me, the information is that these are basically call centers because of the expected influx of business process outsourcing coming to the country. The prediction is that for the next 5 years, anywhere from 500,000 to 600,000 seats are coming to the country. That's the prediction. With the assumption of Trump, there was some uncertainty as to whether this 100,000 call centers seats for each year for the next 5 years would come to pass. And therefore, there was some insecurity in the real estate business. Makikita mo rito, dito lang sa, ang lalaki ng mga buildings na tinatayo dito, lahat daw yan, business process outsourcing. Because every seat in the business process outsourcing industry requires 6 meters of office space. In other words, one call center agent, their industry practice is they need 6 square meters of office space. If there are 500,000 needed in the next or coming in the next 5 years, that's 3 million square meters of office space. And you start building, ngayon pa lang, nag-umpisa ka na. Ngayon, medyo there was some uncertainty because of the policies of Trump. But this uncertainty went away because the chismis is that there will be a lot of online gambling coming in from some neighboring countries, coming here on a huge scale. Pera na kasi, ito, I need X number of square meters as call centers, but actually these are online gambling. I'm sure you have heard of this, Madam Chair.
Online gaming po talaga is very labor-intensive, particularly the service providers. But so far now, our licensed in PAGCOR, we only have 43 operators, and then we have 10 sports betting.
No, the license is being issued by
but the others,
by the other agencies.
Oh, but soon po, because
boundaries are already all over Metro Manila.
We're trying to correct that because now we have a system of trying to identify the illegal gambling outfits because of the issuance of EO 13 by the President, which has actually identified what is illegal and what is legal. Now we're working with NBI, BI, also with the police. And in our website, we have put up the names of all of our licensees and our service providers. And those who are not there, then these are the ones that are illegal, so therefore they try to raid them.
I'm sure these people from the private sector have some idea, pero hindi lang nagsasabi mo yan. I'm sure they have heard of this online gambling in various buildings all over Metro Manila. They just keep quiet. But what is the extent of online gambling in Manila? Principally sa Manila lang naman ito. Licensed by certain
yes, it's a little less now, but there was a time when there was a report that the online gaming that is licensed by the other corporations, the number of employees numbered to over 100,000 people. Right now, we're still trying to determine how many illegal BPOs and service providers there are, because because we're getting our own third-party independent service providers, and in their presentation, they told us that there are about 30,000 illegal BPOs that are servicing these people, and that is the reason why we're being very careful with how we conduct our own online gaming. Unfortunately,
these are called service operators. Tawag ka na.
Operators po, sir. Tapos kasi bago po maka-operate yung isang licensee, meron po siyang 5 kinds of service providers.
So you're saying that they employ about how many people? I mean...
Noon po, bago mo po ako, sinabi po sa akin ng mga ibang taga-IRs na anywhere from 80,000 to 100,000 doon lang sa RCBC or something thereabouts.
So right now, after 1 year...
marami na po ang nagsara, pero marami pa rin po ang nag-ooperate.
So about, your rough estimate about 100,000...
Yun po ang sabi nila eh. Pero po ngayon, nire-raid na daw sila eh. Wala po kasi kaming powers sa illegal gambling, sir. Kaya,
what is the volume of the income of online gambling? Just off the top of your head, and maybe I'll ask the private sector later on. I'm sure they're better informed, but they're just very quiet.
Ang estimate po, 25 billion US dollars a year.
You see? You repeat, 25 billion US dollars would be the income, or would be the...
The GGR, sir.
The?
Gross gaming revenue.
Gross gaming revenue. 25 billion US dollars. Jesus Christ.
It's almost half of the country's debt.
Yes, sir.
Compared to you, how much is your gaming operations income?
Right now, sir, we're predicting to have about 60 billion this year.
60
pesos.
60 billion pesos.
1 billion 300 million dollars.
1.3
million pesos.
1.3 billion dollars?
1 billion 300 million pesos.
Kaya nga, 1.3 billion dollars.
Yes, sir.
Versus 25 billion of this. Yeah, 25 billion of this online.
And that is all foreign.
Yes.
Foreign bets.
Yes.
Wala pong local doon.
Wala pong local dyan. Puro foreign bets yan. But nangyayari sa atin dito, and the government has absolutely no share of the income.
Now po, sir, we started with 35 only. Kasi dati may 200 operators, yung isa lang yung CESA lang. Nag-start po kami ng 35. Nakaka-GGR na po kami ng 2 billion pesos as of June.
2.5
How did you come up with that estimate, yung 25 billion dollars?
Yan po yung sinasabi sa amin ng mga nag-a-apply na ayaw mag-apply before kasi they don't want their operations to be tainted. Because once naman po na they were actually telling us, informing us that the Philippines has been known to be the illegal gambling capital of the world, particularly in sports betting. So they did not want to get in. But now the horse racing group that's very legitimate and that has an American and a European market has already joined us and is one of our licensees.
What measures can you put in place to more or less capture?
We have to have a very strong police force to really, because alam naman po natin kung nasaan yung pag ni-raid talagang dapat sarhan.
Din yung NBI saka yung police, di ba?
Opo,
Kaya
sir.
lang minsan, ni-raid lang nila tapos nagkakagano lang din, hindi man talaga tinutuluyan.
These are the jack lamps operation.
Opo.
Yes, right or wrong? I mean, these are the, the jack lamps.
Yes.
Anyway, operational expenses, and this is commendable on the committee. From 18.4 billion in 2015, you managed to reduce it to 14.1 billion in 2016. So anong ginawa nyo? Anong magic? Bakit na-reduce nyo yung operational expenses? And that could be the reason why you are projecting to increase the income, di ba? Because of reduced operational expenses.
Nagtipid po. We just didn't allow any
Because
more.
4 billion is 4 billion, ano? Yeah, 4 billion pesos less in operational expenses. So, and how much more do you project yung reduction nyo once na ma-privatize or maging regulatory na lang?
Right now po, sir, I'm looking at the overhead at the corporate offices. Because what we've done is we've looked at the branches. Now I'm looking at the corporate overhead. It's such a huge organization that it's very difficult to do all of the changes all of the time because I've just, upset everybody and we may not be able to achieve what we want. So we're doing it by stages as fast as we can.
Just going back to that very interesting revelation, would the private gaming industry confirm that you lose about 25 billion US dollars to the illegal online potential income? I know that there is no record, but I'm also sure that you guys have heard of this thing. And you would have your own estimates. Would Attorney Alvarez venture? No. Mr. Almeida, would you venture?
Wala rin ho kaming wala rin ho kaming barometer kung anong, because it happens in the cloud, so to speak. It's a high-tech kind of a thing. It's not like the brick and mortar, casinos that we have here. Obviously, this is.
But you have heard of this?
Yeah, we have heard of it. Yes.
You have heard of this. Yes. In fact, I have heard from the real property sector. The real estate owners. Don't worry, we will rent how many thousand square meters just for this. But that's why I suspected that there's a lot of unearned fees on the part of the Philippine government if we can supervise this better. But this is illegal, and this is police work. You're saying?
Sir, sa PAGCOR, ang cost ng license, $250,000. Tapos bawat operator may minimum guarantee fund of $150,000 a month or for 15 tables at $10,000 US dollars. Pag na-hire na namin yung aming audit provider, tataas na po yun kasi madidetermine na namin kung may premium na above 150. Doon po kasi sa ibang operators o ibang nagbibigay ng license, $40,000 lang ang license. Tapos $5,000 lang po ang per table, wala pong minimum. Tapos 1% goes to the National Treasury at self-declared po ang income.
Yes.
So, kaya kami.
Yun sa Costa sa Gablinan, di ba tara?
So, yun po yung the best way that we can is minimum guarantee fund, now get an automated audit service provider.
With more reason, Mr. Chair, we should make sure that the bill that we craft would cover this particular leak in the income of the national government. That's huge.
Na yung leak mas malaki pa doon sa income.
Mas malaki pa sa industriya.
20 times more, di ba? Kasi 1.3 against 25 So at least 20 times more yung leakage doon sa generate natin. That's obscene. Anymore kasi after this kung wala na tayong issues, we'll just try to reconcile the provisions do sa bill ni Senator Recto with that of my bill. Of course, that's your bill. And we'll schedule a TWG na so we can speed this up. The only challenge and the only issue that we can foresee is the House version. Because the moment we meet in a bicameral conference, the two committees, dito talaga magkakabugbugan ng gusto. So, were you already invited by the House do sa version nila, do sa bill? Wala pa? Oh, you just keep on opposing para there's no justification for a committee report that would be directly in contrast with all the stakeholders. No? Yes. If I may suggest that. DSWD. Sorry. Sige, you're the legal services head. Sige, please, DSWD. Hindi yata kayo nasali rito. Tutal, inayawan ng DepEd. Sige, we want to hear from you.
Good morning, Your Honors. We support both bills, especially that part of the revenue that will be collected will be earmarked for some DSWD programs. For Senator Lacson for the ECCD. For Senator Recto, we have reservation because treatment for addictions of drug dependency and alcoholism is within the mandate of the DOH, we believe. And we are only on the preventive aspect of the project of the department as regards this drug operations of the present administration. That's with the DSWD, Your Honor.
Matanong yung Vanderwood, ano ba yung issue doon? Okay na? Tapos na yun.
Hanggang ngayon, sir, wala pa kaming nababayaran kahit piso eh. Binalik ko na yung down payment nila, dineposit ko na.
Operating already?
We're operating there.
Are you operating there?
Pinaalis na po kami sa pavilion, wala na po kaming pagpuntahan eh. Binding pa po yung contract namin doon. So, we're there, we're not paying anything yet, and we have no place for our machines and our people, about 2,000 of them. So it was a badly inherited problem, so I just have to follow the law on contracts.
Anyway, anything more from any of our resource persons?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Kung pwede po, anak na lang po kami sa labas ni Ma'am Andrea. Huwag naman po sana kaming maging under ng PAGCOM. Kasi feeling po namin iba po yung mandate namin. Kasi gaming sila, kami po yung professional sports.
Ayaw naman po namin maging anak sila na legitimate eh.
Okay, agree na po. Thank you. Mutual, admiration club.
So with that, we'll just inform you when the technical working group meeting will be held. And I'd like to, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank everybody for your inputs, and particularly sa colleague ko who's beside me, Senator Dillon. Thank you very much, and have a good day.